Hello, my name is Glen Alexander and thank you very much for watching this video in which I'm going to prove for you Shakespeare is not a worthy gentleman. Here is Shakespeare's coat of arms. The entitlement to bear such arms proves Shakespeare was a gentleman. However, I'm going to prove to you in this video that Shakespeare is not a worthy gentleman. We're going to do this by looking at three main things. 1. Unworthy Blazon. 2. Unworthy colour. And 3. Unlawful quartering. And what's more, I'll also prove intent, so that this would stand up in a court of law. We'll do this by using the highly important book, The Antecedents of Armoury, all about coats of arms, which teaches the correctness and lawfulness of such. But before we begin, let's have a quick look at the history of Shakespeare's coat of arms. The arms were granted to John Shakespeare, that's Shakespeare's father. 2 draft grants were made by the Garter King of Arms, that's the top herald in the country, William Dethick, and both of these 2 draft grants were made on the same day. A picture of draft grant 1 can be seen above. A third confirmation draft, impaling Mary Arden, which means combining Shakespeare's coat of arms with Mary Arden's, his wife Mary Arden's, was made by Garter King of Arms William Dethick again, and the second highest ranking herald in the country, Clarenceux King of Arms William Camden, dated 1599. Lastly, in 1602, the herald Ralph Brooke drew up a list of 23 mean persons who he believed had wrongfully or incorrectly been granted arms by William Dethick and William Camden, which he presented to the Queen. Shakespeare was on this list. In other words, a contemporary herald of the time also considered Shakespeare to be an unworthy gentleman and incorrectly granted arms, which you can see here, Shakespeare number 4 on that list. I also came across this wonderful article in the New York Times, thank you very much New York Times, entitled Shakespeare Actor, Player, Social Climber by Jennifer Schuessler in 2016. It said, the new depictions Miss Wolfe, that's Dr. Heather Wolfe, of the Folger Shakespeare Library, has gathered are all from the 17th century. More than half associate the arms with Shakespeare the player or with William, not John. That's Shakespeare the player. It makes it abundantly clear that while Shakespeare was obtaining the arms on behalf of his father, it was really for his own status, she said. Mr. Shapiro, that's Professor James Shapiro, Professor of English at the University of Columbia, said he agreed all evidence suggests that this was not about the father, he said, but about how Shakespeare wanted to be seen. Now that we've seen the history and some context, we're going to prove Shakespeare is not a worthy gentleman, starting with our unlawful blazon. Blazon, if you didn't know, is a formal description of a coat of arms in a correct heraldic manner. So, as we said, we're going to be using The Antecedents of Armoury by Gerard Lee, written as a dialogue between a herald, or Heerhort, called Gerard, and a Caliphate knight called Lee, coincidentally named after the author. Lee, who has come to learn those things that you are bound to teach me, Gerald. That is to blaze arms. And the first point that Gerard is going to teach Lee, starting right on page 1, is the colours and metals of coats of arms and their correct heraldic terms. So the first point, there's 2 metals, gold and silver, and 7 colours, but you must not term them red, like blue, black, green, gold, silver. You must not turn them so, wherefore I will set their proper names within every of their scutcheons, that's shields, and for to call them by these names, it were shame amongst the Heralds, and not worthy the name of Blazon. But to the effect, first, I will begin with the most precious metal, gold, which you can see in that escutcheon. That's the correct heraldic term for gold, or, which is the French word. So just to reiterate, or is the correct heraldic term for gold. And if we have a look at the blazon, the description of arms of the 3 draft grants issuing Shakespeare's coat of arms, we shall find gold in draft grant 1, gold in draft grant 2, and gold in draft grant 3. If we have a look at draft grant 1, we can clearly see William Dethick's drawing of the coat of arms with the correct heraldic term describing the field or background of the shield as or, gold, or. So he does know the correct terms, so the question is, why hasn't he used that in the blazon? The correct term for silver is argent. That is called silver and blazed by the name of argent. For black, the correct heraldic term is sable. So if we have a look at draft 1 and draft grant 2, you will see the correct term sable and the correct term argent has been used, but not the correct term gold, which is of course or. So from draft 1, draft 2 and draft grant 3 we have unworthy blazon. Now I'm going to prove to you that this is not just an accident, but that our 2 top heralds know fine well that this blazon is incorrect and have deliberately done this. Draft grant number 3 of 1599 is the most important, as it's granted by not 1 but 2 of the foremost heralds in the country, William Dethick and William Camden, who both, in witness and testimony whereof we have subscribed our names and fastened the seals of our offices, even at the office of arms, London, they have signed their names to this draft grant. And may I give you the most important strike through in history. What we have here are the 2 most authoritative heralds in the country striking through the correct term and deliberately writing the incorrect term above it. If we can see this in draft 3 there, you can see the incorrect usage, and to remind you, all other usages in draft 1, draft 2 and draft 3 are correct. So there is absolutely no reason why the foremost authorities would make this mistake, striking through the correct term and writing the incorrect term immediately after it. And just to remind you, this is unworthy blazon, as per the Accedents of Armoury, and both of these 2 authorities have signed their names even at the office of the Arms of London. So I politely throw down the gauntlet to any academic, or anyone else for that matter, in the world who would like to try and explain that. And now for a short Shakespearean interlude, The Taming of the Shrew, Act 2, Scene 1. What, with my tongue in your tail? Nay, come again, good Kate, I am a gentleman. That I'll try. She strikes him. I swear I'll cuff you if you strike again. So may you lose your arms if you strike me. You are no gentleman, and if no gentleman, why then no arms. A herald, Kate? Oh, put me in thy books. Well, here's a book, The Elements of Armories, all about teaching arms. And you'll notice on the front there is a quote from Ovid's Metamorphoses. I know that because it tells me in the back of the book. Ovid's Metamorphoses, regarded by pretty much every Shakespeare scholar as one of the most influential sources for Shakespeare. And coincidentally, this book is also how I found the Antecedents, because it commended it to me. And it's my contention, you really should read this book, it's my contention that this book is written by the same author as the Antecedents of Armories. It also just so happens that in the front of this book we have a dedicated letter, the second of 4, by none other than our loving friend William Camden, who starts his letter with what appears to be a witty nod to silver. If you notice, I should deliver silver. A strange coincidence, perhaps, although there seem to be quite a few coincidences, because if we have a look at his monument in Westminster Abbey, which I've explained and gone into in this video here, where is Shakespeare buried, you will find some monumental mischief taking place, and not just with the 3 Shakespeare references of the monument above this, or the E in the background there of the stonework, and not the there seems to be an error as well on the monument itself. It's out by 2 years. It should say 72. So there's quite a lot going on with that monument, and you might want to watch that video. So there's quite a lot of mischief seemingly going on with William Camden. So we've looked at Unworthy Blazon. Now let's look at 2, Unworthy Colour. And on page 2 of the Antecedents, you will find this about gold. Therefore, saith Christine of Peace, no man should bear this metal in arms, but emperors and kings of the blood royal. Are there not many that, notwithstanding, bear gold in their arms, and are not of the blood royal? Yes, but Christine spake it as only for the worthiness thereof, meaning that as none ought to be worthier than they, so they should bear the worthiest metal of all other. And he says just a little bit down, whensoever I speak of bearing, I mean the worthiness of the bearer for honour's sake. And if we have a look at the 2 monarchs alive during Shakespeare's time, and then compare these directly to Shakespeare's coat of arms, we can clearly see that it contains more gold than either one of these 2 monarchs' arms. Hence, it is an unworthy colour, because it contains more gold than kings. Number 3, unlawful quartering. Draft grant number 3 refers to the impaling of Mary Arden's arms and the quartering of his children. Shakespeare, having married the daughter and one of the heirs of Robert Arden of Wellingcote in the said country, and also produced that his ancient coat of arms, heretofore assigned to him whilst he was Her Majesty's officer and bailiff of that town, in consideration of the premises and for the encouragement of his posterity, unto whom such blazon of arms and achievements of inheritance from their said mother by the ancient custom and laws of arms may lawfully descend. And we have likewise on other escutcheon impaled the same with the ancient arms of the said Arden of Wellingcote, signifying thereby that it may and shall be lawful for the said John Shakespeare gent to bear and use the same shield of arms, single or impaled, as aforesaid during his natural life, and that it shall be lawful for his children, issue, and posterity, lawfully begotten, to bear, use, and quarter, and show forth the same. There's Shakespeare's coat of arms, which he could use single or impaled during his life. And this is what it looks like if his arms were impaled. That means put side by side with his wife Mary Arden. Mary Arden, who was of higher birth, as she was from a noble family. The Ardens of Parkhall, who were given land by William the Conqueror, their estate, as previously said, in Wilmcote, and she was the heiress to this estate. And it says in the Accedents of Armoury, here is also to be noted, that if the man marry an heir, and have by her an heir, the same heir shall bear his father's coat and his mother's quartered, as this is. And you have an escutcheon adjacent showing you what a quartered coat of arms looks like. And just as it said in the draft grants, that this is lawful for it to be quartered. This is what Shakespeare's coat of arms should look like if it is correctly quartered. That's what it looks like. And what's really interesting is if you observe the escutcheon in the Accedents and pay attention to the colours of the given quartered shields. Here we have or in the first and fourth quarter, and jewels, which is red, in the second and third quarter. This is the blazon of Mary Arden's coat of arms. You can actually see a picture of that in Draft Grant 3, where it's been tricked, which means the colours are marked onto it. So you can see that on Draft Grant 3. And if you look at the colours of Mary Arden's, of this quartered coat of arms, you'll see the first and the fourth quarter is predominantly gold, and the second and the third quarter are predominantly jewels. So the same predominant colours as the quartered shield in the Accedents. A coincidence? I think not. But the chief argument, this is lawful quartering. This is not lawful quartering. This is unlawful quartering. And it's going to be difficult for any scholar to adequately explain why that has been done. Although there is a witty explanation in the Accedents, which I invite you to read. And I also have looked at it in my 8-hour one-take marathon of a video, Shakespeare's Coat of Arms. So, we've seen unworthy blazon, we've seen unworthy colour, and we've seen unlawful quartering. But there's other faults too, and I'll give you a quick example. For instance, here you shall learn a rule, that is, there are fewer words whereof you may not name any of them twice in the blazon of one coat, and these be they, of, on, and with. These may not be spoken any more than once in one coat. If they be, it is accounted such a fault as he that that committed the same is not worthy to blaze a coat. And you will see there are some excessive usages of, on, and with. And what's more, if you also notice in draft 2, and has been also struck through, showing there may be an awareness that that shouldn't be done. Also, we have, beside naming of colour and metal too often, and we have the metal named too often. And I say so because I would not break no rule in naming of one thing twice in a coat. The obvious thing that's been named twice in this blazon is the spear itself has been named twice. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of faults, and it is not worthy blazon. So we've seen unworthy blazon, unworthy colour, unlawful quartering, and quite a few other faults that make this blazon not worthy. I'll start winding down with a quote from Ovid's Metamorphoses: "Birth and ancestry, and that which we have not ourselves achieved, we can scarcely call our own." And Shakespeare, the player, cannot worthily call that coat of arms his own. One more thing, I've got one more thing to say actually about Shakespeare the player, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in another video, which will be an appendage to this video to follow swiftly on its heels. So my turn for a strike through. It's not Shakespeare's coat of arms, and if you'd like to know whose coat of arms it is, you need only ask one simple question: who is shaking the spear? Thank you very much.